Biology is the science of life. It is the branch of science that seeks to understand the complicated processes and structures essential to life, and that also investigates the relationships between different types of living things. The natural place to begin our study of biology is by asking one simple question: what is life? In other words, what characteristics or traits are shared by all living things? The first characteristic of life is that all living things are made from the same basic chemical ingredients. All living things are composed of complicated chemical substances not found in non-living things such as rocks. For example, living things, or organisms, store biological information in long twisted chemical chains known as nucleic acids. The nucleic acid, called DNA, is by far the most common information-storing chemical. The information stored in DNA contains instructions that control all life activities. The second characteristic of life is that all living things are composed of cells. Cells are the basic structural units, or building blocks of life. Most, such as the box-like plant cells seen here, require a microscope to see. The third characteristic of living things is that they require water and a source of energy to run their life processes. Plants, for example, actually capture energy from the sun and use it to combine non-living carbon dioxide gas and water into sugars, which chemically store the energy. And while animals cannot capture the sun's energy directly, they can eat plants, plant products, or even other animals, and get the energy they need in those ways. The fourth characteristic is probably the most amazing life process, namely the ability to reproduce and grow. This means that living things produce offspring so that their own special form of life, or species, will survive for one more generation. This characteristic also means that small organisms that are in the early stages of life can grow and become larger. The fifth characteristic of life is the actual reason that organisms must reproduce. It is the fact that all living things have limited lifespans. This means that all organisms eventually wear out and die. In this way, old worn-out creatures are replaced by healthy young ones. Dead organisms also become food for other organisms, and as they decay, they enrich the soil. The sixth characteristic, that living things can respond to their surroundings, is extremely important. Being able to respond to danger and locate food are two obvious examples of this trait. But another important way organisms respond to their surroundings is by maintaining a balanced environment inside their bodies, a process known as homeostasis. A good example of homeostasis is the ability of humans to maintain a constant body temperature, even though the outside temperature is changing all the time. The seventh characteristic of life is one of the main ways that organisms respond to their surroundings, namely, through their ability to move. The lives of many organisms depend on being able to move to capture food and to escape from danger. Obviously, some organisms move around a lot and can do so quite quickly, whereas most plants, on the other hand, move so slowly their movements are hard to see. For example, when a cactus flower opens to the sun. An eighth characteristic of living things is that they are able to repair injuries to themselves, provided the damage is not too severe. Some organisms, such as this salamander, can actually regrow arms or legs that have been torn off. The world is a dangerous place, and without the ability to repair wounds, huge numbers of creatures would die before they ever reach adulthood. The ninth and final characteristic of living things is that they can undergo change over time. This means that species of living things are constantly adapting to meet the challenges of their environments. Through adaptation, organisms have been able to develop valuable traits that allow them to survive where others die. This is the main reason why there are so many different kinds of living things on Earth, including organisms like these who thrive in hot springs, places where the temperatures get so high they would kill most other creatures. As far as anyone knows, the Earth is the only place in the universe where life exists. We know from discoveries of ancient fossilized organisms that life appeared on Earth about 3.5 billion years ago. Those ancient fossils showed that the first living things were primitive microorganisms, similar to the bacteria seen here. Over countless centuries, these simple creatures were subjected to powerful forces from the Earth's environment. These forces brought about useful changes in some organisms and caused others to die off. And it was always those creatures whose traits best suited the environmental conditions that lived on and reproduced. Scientists refer to this process as evolution. In adapting to new and often harsh environments, primitive organisms developed a wide array of remarkable forms. And while most living things remain small and quite simple, consisting of just one cell, other organisms appeared that had large numbers of cells that over time specialized to carry out many different tasks, such as transporting oxygen in the blood or electrical impulses in the brain. Today, there are well over 1 million kinds of living things. They exist in a fantastic variety of sizes, shapes, and colors. And there are very few places on Earth where life cannot be found. For hundreds of years, scientists have been trying to understand how different kinds of living things are related to one another. One of the main ways they have done this is by attempting to classify organisms according to their traits. Classification involves placing organisms that share the same traits into the same groups. Classification